These are the books that I want to read this summer. Let's talk for a minute about why I chose them. What's going on, readers? I'm Walter, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 15 or so books that I hope to read this summer. The first book of my summer reading list is, drumroll please, Selected Sermons by Lemuel Haynes. This book is a part of the Crossway Short Classics series, and I'm trying to work my way through the entire series. I'm reading this book roughly at the pace of one sermon per day, although it's been a couple of days since I've cracked it open, and I've already read 2 of the 4 sermons that are included in this book. And so I may have completed this book by the time this video goes up, but I want to commend it to you as a collection of Reformed sermons from the late early 1800s. The second book on my reading list, which is also a book that I started before the summer officially started, but is just kind of continuing into the summer, is Concise Theology by J.I. Packer. I have this fancy new edition that was published by Crossway, but there's also a paperback for about half the price on Amazon. What's interesting about this book and why I'm choosing to read it is it's about 90 or so systematic theology topics that are basically 1 or 2 pages each, or 2 or 3 pages each. And so I just read 1 or 2 or 3 every morning, and I learn a little bit about systematic theology. Packer's really good about taking these huge theological topics and stating them succinctly in just a few pages. And so this is a book, along with the Lemuel Haynes book and the next book, that I'm just kind of reading in a drip fashion, 1 or 2 pages a day, and slowly working my way through it. The next book on my summer reading list is Things Unseen by J. Gresham Machen. J. Gresham Machen founded Westminster Seminary in the 1920s after leaving Princeton Seminary. And when he got here in Philly, he started Westminster Seminary, and he did a series of radio addresses, about 50 or so radio addresses, that make up the contents of this book. And so he explains the basics of Christianity, and then even he gets specific into Reformed doctrines and explains those in a way that is very digestible and easy to understand. And so I'm learning a lot from this book on how to communicate deep truths of the gospel in a very simple way. And just like the Lemuel Haynes book and the J.I. Packer book, this is a book that I just read a little bit of each morning. So I'll read maybe 1 of the 50 lectures, and then that's it for the day. The next book on my reading list this summer is George H. Guthrie's A Short Guide to Reading the Bible Better. This is a very short series from B&H called A Short Guide To. I really enjoyed Mason King's entry into this series, and so when B&H sent me this in the mail, I figured, hey, this is a short book. It's seemingly spiritually beneficial. I'll check it out. The next book on my summer reading list is Welcome to Adulting by Jonathan J.P. Pokluda. J.P. is or was, I'm not 100% sure, involved with the ministry called The Porch, which has a couple locations in Texas. I consider the folks from The Porch to be kind of a cool strain of evangelicalism that I don't quite have a grasp on or a handle on. And so I'm reading this book to kind of get a feel for what it is that this group of folks believe, how they approach the scriptures, how they approach the issues of the day. And so, yeah, that's why I'm reading this book this summer. The next book on my list is called The God of the Garden by Andrew Peterson. I'm reading this book with a group of fellow writers for a group blog that I contribute to called With the Shepherd. And while I can tell that me and Andrew are very different, he is extremely flowery in his language, and he tells a lot of personal stories that are really meaningful to him. And he's very sentimental in ways that I'm not. And so we're very different, and I'm learning a lot from just the way that he writes and the way that he expresses himself in his recollections of the past. The next book on the list is You Are a Theologian by Jen Wilkin and J.T. English. I enjoyed English's first book called Deep Discipleship, and so this book from English and Wilkin jumped out at me. I'm interested to read it. It's a very basic introduction to systematic theology, something like 14 or 15 pages per topic of things like doctrine of Scripture, doctrine of man, doctrine of sin. And so I'm enjoying it. It's an intro to systematic theology. Those are kind of a dime a dozen, but it looks like it'll be worth my time. This next book is a big one. Let's see if I can lift it up. Biblical Critical Theory by Christopher Watkin is the next title. I am strong enough to hold it in one hand for now. We'll see if I can stick with the book this big. It clocks in well over 500 pages. Basically, it's supposedly laying out a theory by which Christians can, as Christians, examine the culture and analyze culture more broadly. And so instead of having the culture analyze Christianity, it kind of turns a mirror, in a sense, to the culture and says, how does the Bible actually interpret what the culture is saying? So I'm looking forward to reading it, and we'll see if I can keep with it this summer. That's a big book. The next book that's on my summer reading list is called Come and See by Glenn Scrivener and Justin Schell. This book is a history and theology of missions, and it's from Union Publishing. I've enjoyed the few books that I've read from this publisher before, and this one, just like the rest, is very short, super easy to read, and also spiritually beneficial. I do feel inspired by reading this book to go out and speak the gospel to others out of an overflow of who God is in love and the love that he has shown to me in Christ. The next book that I'm going to read this summer is called Thank God, Becoming More Grateful to the Greatest of Givers by Ruben Bredenhoff. This book is published by Reformation Heritage Books, and if RHB publishes something, you know it's worth your time to read. This is a book on a topic that we all need to grow in, gratefulness, and so when they sent it over to me, I was like, yeah, I'll take my time and read this book, and Lord willing, be spiritually beneficial to me as I seek to grow in gratitude. Another book I'm looking forward to reading this summer is called Safeguards by Julie Lowe. Patsy and I right now don't have any children, but I'm a leader at a local church. We lead a small group together, and there are kids in both of those contexts that we are responsible on some level to keep safe. And in this book, Julie Lowe lays out, from what I understand, a really strong pathway to keeping children safe in your ministry, whether that's in a Sunday morning context, whether that's in a small group context, or I think there's even a lot of advice here for parents who want to keep their kids safe. It's called Safeguards by Julie Lowe, and it's written from a strong Christian perspective. That book was kind of an impulse buy. I got it at a conference that I recently went to, mostly because it was pretty cheap, and I was like, hey, this book is pretty cheap. And not only have I not read it, I hadn't even heard of it before that event, which just goes to show you how out of touch I am with the kids book world. And so I picked it up, really looking forward to reading it. And this might be why I need to do no buy summer, where I don't buy any books for at least for a month, but maybe for the whole summer. Let me know what you think I should do. Should I do a no buy summer, or should I be open to whatever new opportunities cross my path? A book that I'm reading at night right now is called R.C. Sproul A Life by Stephen Nichols. I deeply admire R.C. Sproul, his ministry, his faithful expository preaching of the word week after week, month after month, year after year, and the way that he even utilized technology to speak the gospel and to teach others about theology. There's something about that, with Ligonier and all the teaching videos he did way before it was cool. And so there's something about that really inspires me. And so I'm reading this biography of R.C. Sproul. The next book on my summer reading list is The Secret Thoughts of an Unlikely Convert by Rosaria Butterfield. I'm reading this book. It's a memoir of a English teacher who is not following Christ, gets converted, and this is the story. It's a memoir. I'm trying to read a couple memoirs / biographies this summer with the R.C. Sproul book and now this book, and so looking forward to learning about her story. The second to last book I'm going to be talking about today is called Tactics by Greg Koukl. This book has been recommended to me many times, and I think the skill of talking about your Christian convictions and actually having a discussion, having a conversation is a skill that really very few people possess nowadays. And so I'm looking forward to, Lord willing, growing in this skill, this ability to actually have a conversation about my Christian convictions and not just burp them in my conversation partner's face. The final book is called We're All Freaking Out and Why We Don't Need to by David Marvin. David Marvin was one of the main leaders of the Porch Ministry that I mentioned earlier. This is a book about anxiety. It's written to young people, and so I'm interested to see how it's communicated. Does it resonate with me? Is it scriptural? That kind of thing. Looking forward to it. So those are the books that I want to read this summer, and now it's your turn. What is it that you want to read this summer? If you haven't had the chance to put together your 2023 summer reading list yet, go ahead and watch this video where I give you a step-by-step tutorial on how you can make your reading plan this year. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you go ahead and turn the page on that like button for me and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell and share this with your friends. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.